and welcome back. We're picking up where we left off last time in this run in Victoria 3. It's the Great Qing in a run set in 1.9.6 that we're trying to finish up in 1.9.7 here. We got the last 5 years or so of the game here. We were trying to get the GDP as high as possible, and we got it up to 4.05 billion. Things have been happening and the GDP has been going down. Not really the cost of standard living, but mainly, I think, because we've been transitioning more and more away from things that don't necessarily make GDP. Like, and one thing is I'm going to take a risk at doing. I'm going to turn off auto expansion view and subsidies on you. I'm going to turn off subsidies on you. These are mostly profitable, so the ones that aren't profitable will probably be fine to go away. Now, the power plants, we're going to start doing some stuff where we're going to try to swap more and more of it over to oil-based. And what I'm going to do to support that is I think I'm just going to subsidize, for the moment, and this might not be very sustainable, we're going to subsidize little things that consume electricity to get people to work as we stop subsidizing electrical plants, basically. And then we'll have to turn the subsidies off one by one. Oh, you require electricity, yeah, you require electricity. But yeah, we're going to get everyone employed, and then we're going to try to selectively turn subsidies back off again in the hopes of getting the economy growing. One thing we're going to do is we definitely apparently have a bunch of demand for stuff to be built right now, so we do have unemployed in places. Let's go ahead and get more construction sectors in those places. At least so much as we have unemployed. Employed a job. Or at least try to get them a job. See how well that works. Okay, a couple weeks and we've already dropped the unemployment by like 1 million or 2 people. Okay, I don't like the fact that our fences are going through the roof. Though some of that's probably coming from... yeah, I just enacted a bunch of subsidies. Oh, industries are expensive, urban centers are expensive. People are employed again. Nope. Now we have hardwood's expensive. Interesting. Rubber's expensive. That's more annoying. Could drop a, let's drop an import subvention on there. Hardwood's a little bit easier to fix because I can just change up the PMs. It's actually so expensive. I'm gonna take the risk of just swapping everything over to hardwood production. See how that works. Wait, everything's on hardwood production, that's still not enough? Okay, I might need to subsidize those trade centers. Apparently they were important. Yeah, let's start backing off some of the most expensive subsidies. We want to stay at full employment. We don't want to be blowing the bank. Let's drop the urban centers first. Oh yeah, it's time. I'm gonna back off on a bunch of expenses. Just realized that we're suddenly up at a credit limit, and that's the National Reserve and a bunch of buildings going down. Yeah, I'm just gonna give up on the subsidies. Yeah, don't want to make the country bankrupt before we end the run. We're arguably way too close to that, so... Okay. Oh, the Communist Party is now the biggest. Oh, well, they got the most votes. They didn't get the, they're still not the biggest political power. Because wealth does play a role, and the petit bourgeoisie are apparently still full of the wealthy people. Apparently because they got all the ownership pops, presumably. Clerks and shopkeepers, yeah. Yeah, that attempt at subsidy trick did not work. I might take a risk, and this is a little bit of a risk. We're gonna go back to subsidizing the power plants. Leave them on coal power. And then hopefully the economy recovers. GDP, or standard of living, is still pretty stable. Even as the GDP continues to decline, because that's apparently how we roll. The P8 tools was apparently on both sides of this issue. Okay. Probably worth setting up battleships. Do you have more interests I can use? Yes. This is a little bit more effective trade advantage in places. Morale loss and morale damage. Okay. And yeah, with fleets, we will tell the fleets to upgrade to the modern battleship. Out of the dreadnoughts. Yeah, hopefully with this railway's done, we'll have a little bit more infrastructure in places to help some of the stuff work. Don't like that our revenue has gone down so severely. We might, after child labor is done, attempt to move over to the other tax law. Interesting. Okay, so that's what's happened. For whatever reason, dividends have presumably collapsed. So we're just having a profitability crisis, which is collapsing the ability of the government to earn money. Okay. This is a pain. This is a full-on economic downturn, and there isn't a really good solution to this. Like, normally your solution would be build profitable buildings. But, like, we can't build rubber. We've got no local rubber production. Can't build coal. We've got no local coal, no place to put coal mines. And so on. All the RGOs are basically expensive at this point in-country. I don't really have the capacity to encourage more imports. Then maybe with 25.5 million unemployed, we do. Maybe I'm just wrong on that. Why are my... What's happened to your infrastructure? How is Zhangxi, like, thousands of infrastructure in the hole? Because there's a flood. The flood's applying minus 16% infrastructure, which is... Yeah, okay. So that's why the economy is in the trash. Because, you know, there's a flood. Yep. We'll blame it on the flood. It's not affecting the entire country, it's just affecting an uncomfortable large amount of the country. Yeah, I don't think the flood's helping with the standard of living. And the unemployment's dropping wages, which is actually at this point starting to affect the standard of living as well. The price in grain. Basically neutral. One thing I could do... Nope, apparently labor is expensive enough to warrant the oil consumption. Interesting. Is that the same on the logging camps? Yeah? It's probably not the same everywhere. Well... Drawing practical in some places. Airplanes aren't worth it. We got one on airplanes just because there's some demand. Yeah, we'll swap over to hand assembly. Apparently labor is cheap enough for some places. Wow, that's how bad the electricity is? Yeah, we'll just not do electricity then. That's fine. And then tools definitely, yeah. I don't know what well, they changed all the oil PMs, that's what's happened. Okay. And suddenly, we're profitable again. Well, I say profitable, the GDP's up. This has come at the expense of, government, apparently. The power plant costs went up because we're consuming a lot less power. Okay. And of course, I can only cancel like expansion of buildings, so I can't come into these buildings and say, hey, like you probably have to be this big. You can say stop subsidizing you, get you to start shrinking. You know, if it doesn't overshrink. Might actually be easier. Turn subsidies off, come to the market. And then where we have demand, positive demand, you actually need subsidies to stay going. That's the question. No. I say is the GDP growth crashing. Obviously there's some balance in there that I need to do. Okay, we need to do more government administration, apparently. Deal with the fact that the population continues to grow. Okay, I'm kind of dealing with the electrical companies on a case-by-case basis, which is tedious and annoying, but it's just how we're gonna have to roll. Restricting child labor. So as part of restricting child labor, I should really go in and should expand education. Granted, I need more government for that. Actually, it wouldn't be too hard to generate. Sure, do that. That should get us the government we need. Back to futzing with the power grid, because apparently that's going to be the game for the rest of the game. Okay, this is actually a situation where we just need... Mekong here just needs more. The oil-based one, I believe, is actually 100 each, so we just need like 6 levels here. See how that works. And then these couple just need to hire up, if they can hire up. compulsory primary school, women's suffrage, we already have, protected speech. We probably really want to go to right assembly. Guaranteed liberties. Okay. Has the economy recovered enough that I can maybe move over to... No. And there's opposition to it at this point. Well, the Petit is also against it. Okay. Move the worker protection, which we really don't think we want worker protection, or did they nerf? Yeah, okay, so they at some point changed worker protection to be... Ah, there, that's what we don't want. We don't want the minimum wage modifier on it, so we gotta leave it. Gotta stay on our body. We do have people pushing, we could potentially push for compulsory, but we're fine there. The oil one, in theory, assuming we have the oil, is actually the more profitable of the two. But that's a big if, which is why I'm not just slapping everything on oil, because that's how we screwed the economy up the first time. Inner Mongolia, swap you to oil, so hopefully a little less dependent on workers. Hiring up, shortage gone, that's good to see. Yeah, I've pretty much at this point given up on the queue. The private queue is carrying most of it, and we'll just accept that. It won't be rock steady demand for the construction industries, but it'll be what it is. Formosa. Swap over to oil fired. Probably swap you over to oil fires as well. Yeah. Seems just having issues hiring up. Yeah. Oh, because I don't have it subsidized every once in a while. Other things are just getting profitable enough to pluck the laborers out as well, which isn't super great. Anyway, so the GDP is unstable, but we're got about half of the recovery from where we were at the beginning of this the part recording here. And there are some laws I want to change. Like that's not going to be revenue generating. That's almost revenue neutral, but no, it's not going to be revenue generating. I want to drop the taxes, but at this point I need to reduce the credit load. I presume we have some semi-serious opposition to reducing the censorship. And I think the protected speech is mostly about loyalists, and we got plenty of loyalists. With a third of the country being loyalist, I think we're good. Heavily dependent on the foreign market for rubber, which makes sense. Funkin is going to need intervention. Or does it need intervention? I think it just needs to hire is what's going on. Again, this is partially that we don't have subsidies on, so it's oversupplied when the labor is cheap enough, but it's undersupplied when there is not enough going on. Stormtroopers. That wasn't what I was attacking. Question is, are we getting spread on NCO training? No. Yes. Okay, we'll move over to the other one. We're going to try to finish the tech tree up. I think if we can maximize the spread, we can probably finish up in what's left. Otherwise, it'll be like one tech short. Again, guess the workers probably got plucked by some other industry, so you Got to get profitable enough that you can raise wages, so that you can attract workers back. Labor competition. I just achieved the achievement Cosmopolitan. Don't remember what that one's for. That wasn't a Steam achievement, that was a run achievement, I suppose. So I've got it before. Just don't remember what it is. Yeah, and at this point I've kind of just given up trying to run the economy. I'm letting it build whatever it wants to build. We're on laissez-faire. Laissez-faire, do your thing. Did Chaos, we somehow hit an all-time high, only to come back down from the high. So apparently the all-time high in this run is 4.29 billion. Okay, so as much as it looks like I have reduced the credit the nation's in, the debt the nation's in, it hasn't actually gone down very much. Rather, our debt limit has gone up, which is maybe a good sign for the economic recovery. Economy stabilizes, we can reduce taxes. We can get back down to neutral taxes, that'll probably be a good place. You might actually want to build more construction, because apparently the private queue is actually able to use the entire queue at this point. Shortage of man of wars, that's an issue. Shortage of ammunition's interesting. We have a munitions industry. Apparently it's just not working anymore. It's not profitable enough is probably the answer. To work in our high labor cost environment. GDP per capita is up by 4, so the labor cost is pretty high, likely. Yeah, because I have welfare on peasants. Apparently we don't technically have 0 peasants because we haven't built a farm every last possible location, but the only way we get peasants is peasants are children of peasants or peasants move to the country. Because people shouldn't demote to being peasants. And I own the Honduras one, which is probably why that one is, you know, not particularly productive. Well, I own it, I don't control it. I can't tell it what it should be working. Nope, we got a bunch of places that suddenly have high electricity costs. So some of this might be some of the buildings, for example, I think cost electricity. They've been building. De-electrifying another... Also removing the oil from the industry. Nope, still profitable enough to keep it there. Not profitable enough to put that one on. Okay, and the cars aren't on anything. There's NCO, so now the spread has to, if there is spread, come help us. If there is spread. And then we'll go into mobile armor next. The Social Democratic Party has formed. Okay, it's the trade unions once again. And the Conservatives are still one of the more powerful parties. Photographs. That will just get the prestige. Don't need the legitimacy either. Long Ting is what the country needs? Ethno-nationalist? I'd say no. No. Man of the hour is obviously the humanitarian. Apparently profitable enough we can get down to normal taxes. It's good to see. Oh, I was gonna go to upgrade everything to squad. So squad is gonna jump the trench infantry requirements of ammunition, small arms, and add some radios and more ammo and stuff as well. Dollar interest used, yeah, okay. Standard living's back up. I think the GDP is stabilizing around 3.7, 3.8. So getting back to around about where we were at the beginning of the stream. This has not been a particularly great stream for raising the GDP, but we haven't gone bankrupt. Might make it up, and make it up to the point where we're stably 4 billion before the stream ends. 1 year to get 100 million income, or 100 million GDP. That's believable. Socialist influence. Yeah, sure. More momentum to the trade union. And we work on the last tech. The question is, can we finish it? It's estimating 20 months. Don't have 20 months. So I suspect the answer is no. Though, we're getting spread. The spread might just about make it. 7 to 12 months. Okay. If it's 12 months, we'll get the last tech just in time. Apparently the solution to get the GDP to go is let the free market decide and stop subsidizing everything. Okay. I suppose I am still running subsidies on some stuff. I think I'm subsidizing the railways. Yeah. Railways. There's some subsidies on some power plants, just not all the power plants. And the ports, and the trade centers, and apparently I got some, like, livestock ranches and stuff. Go. Reform against revolution. Now, granted, it's basically going to be the same government as before. You know... honorable. Most popularity. There's mortality. I don't really want that throughput, though. He's not going to come to government, to be fair, most likely. So we'll just go with honorable. We'll have an honorable opposition member. I don't know what changed to reduce the GDP, but it started to go down. Oh, we have a national disaster, that's what's going on. Wait. That very much feels like a natural disaster, but we don't got one going on? What's going on? What happened to make you not have effective taxation? It's just that many people moving in or something? Okay. Oh, I suppose it's just the private key might have stopped building stuff, which then means we have economic downturn. Do I need any more railways when I'm thinking about it? Not really. We'll try. It's probably not going to make a difference. Okay, now we're actually taxing Shaanxi to full. And Shaanxi is probably profitable and revenue generating enough that it is worth taxing. Nations, where we're going to see that info, yeah. Expenses. Biggest expansion is the construction sector, a little bit of the government. You can see that taxation is nice. Almost 2 million coming from taxation here. And so yeah, 14% more taxes was a decent tax rate. Food pandemic is over, which will usher in a new era of population growth. Almost out of unemployed again, so yeah, letting the free market do its thing is apparently good for expanding the economy, keeping the economy stable. It's maybe not very good for power plants, but it is what it is. And electricity is just too expensive. The estimation. Same with the oil for the bottle blowers. Oh, actually, you would in theory be profitable, so we'll swap you on. No enough levers. Granted, at this point, this is kind of making it not useful, because I need to see what's at the bottom of that, thank you. Like, you don't need to repeat not enough to do that so many times. course there's not enough. That's why I'm contemplating doing it. Here we go. So that is all the tax researched. Which, if you're going to use tanks, is useful, but if you're not going to use tanks, like we're not going to use tanks, it's kind of worthless. But got the last tech. Become a little bit more loyalist. Do you have a shortage in any of the electrical places? No. I think the most expensive place is mostly already on oil or won't profit from swapping to oil. Almost at the end of the game, so I'm just gonna let laissez-faire handle the rest of the run here at this point. We get up to 22.4 standard of living average across the nation. We got 250,000 people employed. We may actually, we got just short of 250,000 people. We actually got the full way up to 250,000 people in the end. GDP has been up and down and all around. Never really got to keep it over 4 billion for extended periods of time. And the attempts to get more workers has really just resulted in us being less consistent in GDP. I think because a growing portion of the workers are just ending up as owner class pops. So this is the end of the run. Bit of a shame. We got up to... what were we at the end? Like 3 point something billion people. No, 3 billion GDP. 0.7, 0.8. So it's there was a period in there where we were doing a little bit better than my previous best run. My previous best run was like 3.7 as well. I definitely think we would have been able to do better had I succeeded in getting someplace like Persia, where we had better oil reserves. We're definitely struggling with oil near the end, from a labor-saving standpoint. I think we had a higher standard of living. We had a higher prestige, higher population. We'll hit continue playing here. Looking at the so we can see some of the stats, right? So prestige-wise, we have the highest prestige, which is maybe not surprising. Our largest population class was clerks. Second largest was laborers, which is maybe a sign that we weren't able to quite use the labor-saving PMs as much as we'd like. And then machinists after that. Political strength. Obviously, the capitalists are the strongest. Was trying to do some stuff to raise the power of people like laborers and machinists and stuff like that. And it was mostly working. That's why the petit bourgeoisie were as powerful as they were. Whereas the capitalists were, for a particular class, were the strongest, but they really only supported the industrialists. And I think they were like the entire source of the industrialist power. Farmers were apparently pretty strong as well, and then those clerks coming in. So the largest pop group is also the third largest political power, and that's whether they're being a particularly poor group as well. At least I suspect particularly poor group. Population-wise, we are China, so Han China is one of the largest ones. Our other primary was Manchu, so that's up in third. EU was surprisingly large. I think EU just starts with a large, is one of your larger minorities, as China. That's generally not discriminated against because they're East Asian heritage as well. So they stay EU. Political strength, the Han have all the power. Manchu being a primary culture has a little bit outsized comparison to their size. Same sort of EU, because they're mostly accepted. They have outsized power. Confucian was the most population. Actually surprised. I don't think it starts out the majoritarian as China, but everything else is going to convert to Confucian. It converts. So Confucian grew to be reasonably powerful. I think the Buddhists, for example, don't convert to Confucian, but everything that's not the state religion or of the state religion group should convert to Buddhist. For example, you see the animists here are in theory declining because in theory they're slowly converting over to Confucian. Political strength from a religious standpoint, Confucian, Buddhists, and an alternate type of Buddhism. Okay. So that's what we can see on this one. Population grew mostly by growth. So you can see the kink there where we began transitioning over to probably healthcare. That's probably the healthcare kink, where the line's much more up rather than slow and steady. We can see the prestige. This is probably around about where laissez-faire started kicking in, which is why the prestige starts to rise faster. You can see the prestige, the healthcare kink is also around probably when we did welfare, so standard of living rapidly started to rise. Domestic GDP was going real good. We got about 4 million and we ran out of, or 4 billion and we ran out of pops. And everything that I was doing to try to get more pops to work more jobs, I think was sort of a combination of the capitalist class growing. In fact, how many capitalists did we end up having? No, that's the farmers. Shopkeepers. Shopkeepers are almost 12% of the population, which is an owner class. Bureaucrats are up there. I'm surprised. There we go. So at the end of the game, we had 1.16% of the population is capitalists. We had 10 million capitalists if you include their dependents. And as a side effect, they have the highest political strength because they're incredibly wealthy. And yeah, I think we were reaching the point where once we hit sort of run out of people, my attempts to get more population was being stymied by the fact that people were transitioning over to being capitalists, being the owners, because the owner buildings were growing faster, I think, than other buildings, because we were able to buy and build things in foreign countries, but without people to work them in the home countries, the home industry wasn't growing. So we managed to mostly stave off deindustrialization after we ran out of people. But we weren't able to really continue to grow. That's what I think ended up happening there. We literally ran out of people, and weren't able to keep growing at a rate that didn't just get consumed by the growing owner class. I think even at the end, when we got back up to 3.7, 3.8, that's what was happening again. It was we were hitting the point where we didn't have any more growth because the owner class was just growing faster than our population growth was. So, final GDP, 3.69. So this is actually not the highest gross domestic product I've had as China. I think the highest one will still be 1.8.7, the second run on that patch, where I think we got up to 3.7 something, a little over 3.7. This is pretty close, and arguably that 3.7 was the height of that one. Here we did technically get up for like a couple weeks up to like 4.2. So we had higher GDP in this run, and we just weren't able to maintain that higher GDP. Per capita GDP of 4.1. We had higher literacy than that run. I think we probably had a higher welfare. Population growth was about 1%. I think we actually had slightly lower population growth, but that was probably because of the higher welfare. Though we probably have migration going on in this game, which we didn't in that one. And yeah, standard of living for the poorer class is pretty good. At 20.5. This was arguably probably reducing our pop growth at this point. Middle class is 23.8. And lavish lifestyle, 57 for the upper class. And yeah, you can see, even during the decline, the upper class population was not declining. Yeah, so lower class population, in fact, actually, when we had our decline, had our GDP mishap, that was notably caused by probably a decline in population in the lower class, of them upconverting, not necessarily the middle class, but mostly actually upconverting, I think, to the upper class. Oh, and that's over the last year. Okay, so we did have a decline. Wish that was out over a longer period. No, that was actually the last decade. Okay. The top one, the standard of living. So the standard of living one's useless because it's just a year. It's like, oh yeah, the standard of living's been stable for last year. Thanks. Thanks, game. Yeah, it's been stable for last year. But yeah, you can see that period where our lower strata is actually shrinking. And I think that's the GDP declining period. In this one, during that period, okay, the middle class begins to stagnate, and then the upper class just, there's a little blip, but otherwise the upper class is always growing. It's growing, it's growing, it's growing, it's growing, it's growing. Upper class at the end of the game was 14 million upperclassmen, upper class people, in lavish lifestyle, 57 average lifestyle. Now, a shame that the upper class don't contribute to the GDP. Like, they own the buildings and they build the buildings, but they don't actually contribute to the GDP, which is probably why the GDP just started to stagnate, is because all our growth in that point, from that point on, was mostly coming from growth in the middle class, growth in the upper class, and basically weren't getting wasn't significantly getting much more growth in the lower class because we ran out of pops to employ. They just weren't growing fast enough. A little bit sure more. So yeah, capitalists, fairly large. Aristocrats weren't trivially tiny anyway. They were 0.4. Clergy were up. Clergy were bigger than the capitalists. Shopkeepers were also big big component, and they're also an owner class pop, where they get paid some of the dividends. So they're 11.5. They don't get paid as much dividends as the capitalists, which is why the shopkeep political power isn't as high as the capitalists. They get a lower ratio, but... And then farmers, another ownership class. So it's ownership class, not an ownership class, but one of our biggest pop group. Mechanics, I believe, or machinists are actually paid better than clerks, which is why they're outdoing laborers here, even though the laborers outnumber them. Shopkeepers. Arguably, this is probably implying that our shopkeepers weren't, near the end, weren't getting as many dividends as they usually were. The base pay on shopkeepers is worse than, I think, any other middle-class pop. But as an owner pop, they have much higher potential for earnings, because they're as good at those dividends. But if stuff happens, the dividends start getting suppressed, then they're like the lowest paid middle-class pop. Lowest base paid middle-class pop. And yep, that's the situation there and there. So yeah, I think the run, there's definitely things I think I could do better on the run. I don't really know how to actually improve the situation back when we sort of stagnated due to pop saturation. Trying to build up foreign stuff, I think, just caused a rapid growth in the upper class, which didn't help the GDP. So if I was really trying to min-max the GDP, apparently the trick is maybe not to grow your upper class, weirdly, because they don't really contribute. But yeah, that's going to be my sort of closing words on trying to raise the GDP here in this after-action report. It's a really short one. It's not a really big one, but this is where the video and the stream is going to end. If you're watching YouTube, this is the end of the series. If you have any comments on what you'd like to see next as far as Victoria 3, this is probably a good video in which to leave those comments. I've got an idea for a couple different runs, but I'll stew on them a little bit before we get to doing them. And I've also got other games I want to play. If you're watching on Twitch, this is where the stream is going to end. There is going to be the regularly scheduled stream tonight, which is Shadow Empire. I won't go into the rest of the announcements at that point, because they get a little bit bonusy for YouTube, which if they're watching all the series anyway, I've probably heard it today as well. So with that, I wish you all the best of luck and a good time. Catch you all in the next part, and bye for now.